conference, they had a money manager that was talking about basically his risk over the next 12 months, which allowed him to continue comfortable putting money to work in a risky market environment. And I feel like that's what we're seeing play out now.
So, Russell, how are these strategies working? Have we had a chance to test any of the strategies these folks are looking for? If they're more interested, if there's a big portion of the investing population, according to your survey, about 90% are looking to get into some sort of systematic strategy, right? Do we know if these strategies are working? Do we know like what the hit rate is on these strategies?
Well, the one strategy that I do know has worked fairly well this year has been the short volatility trade. And usually after we get a volatility blow up like we had in the spring of last year, it takes some time for volatility sellers to come back into the market. I can argue that they never left. And if anything, they started to grow their positions a lot more quickly than they had during previous disasters. And I think that's a result of seeing that the time to add to your short volatility strategy is just after we get what I refer to as one of those volatility events. So maybe the volatility sellers, who I do think are pretty smart guys, have gotten smarter.
Russell, who is this most relevant to? Who's using these strategies? What kind of investors can the average person talk to their financial advisor and get exposure to a strategy like this? Is this for more institutional style clients that need a sliver to work into their overall, larger equity positions?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. The protective strategies are mostly pension funds, different types of larger institutional investors are who respond to our outreach. We've got a lot of sovereign wealth funds that we spoke to as well. But if you are like-minded, if you think that there's not a whole lot of upside and you're worried about some of the downside over the next few months, again, the buffer protect type of ETFs, or the ETFs that offer overlay type of returns where you're getting a buffer against some of the drop, but you're giving up some upside. I think that's probably the closest that retail investors can do to what these institutions are doing.
Hey, Russell, real quick before we let you go, we're at VIX 14. Are we going back to single digits again? How far are we going down?
I got put on the spot about 2 weeks ago, and I predicted a VIX under 12 by the end of the year, and I'm looking okay so far.
You're looking okay.
And again, I also think that a lot of institutions have already put their protection on going out the next few months. Looking at block trades, I can see that in the SPX options. You got to get buyers of SPX options to push VIX higher. And I would not be the least bit surprised, even if the market doesn't do a whole lot and people are concerned about downside, that most of the big players are already prepared for some sort of sell-off. So insurance, the demand for insurance may be going away, even if the market sells off some.
All right, Russell, good to catch up. And for those that want to look at the full report, get in touch at EQ Derivatives. Thank you, Mr. Rhodes, Head of Research and Consulting at EQ Derivatives. And a little heads up on the VIX there. Maybe we're getting back down to some pretty low levels. We got JJ joining us this morning to talk some stocks. Equities right now are getting ready to open up positive as the NASDAQ heads back towards neutral on the morning after a touch of red earlier. We've got some companies to talk about with the Chief Market Strategist at TD Ameritrade standing by. JJ, good morning. The Russell is doing better today. Small caps are doing all right. Banks are going to work this morning, and financials post-stress tests are leading the way. JJ, what's on your mind, sir?
Hey, Oliver, how you doing today? Sorry, I was looking at the market there when you guys first came to me. What's really interesting to me, you and I had this conversation about the Russell yesterday, and about movement in
the stock price of the SPAC after deal announcement. Hype investors are locked up for a long period of time, so that's been a little hard to unlock the pipe. To half a
NVIDIA's got high performance computing. It's got, look, I mean, when you go read what Jensen's up to, you realize that he's on another plane entirely. I mean, he's solving things that aren't even problems. He's solving the future. And I've got to tell you, David, while Elon Musk said that I was 50% chance I was a hologram, with
simulation is what he actually said.
Right. Well, okay. Well, let me just tell you something. You're going to be in a room full of simulations. when Jensen's done, and you can say, let's talk Shakespeare. Let's talk Beethoven. You know, you're alone. You don't know what to do. 5 new people. Wow, they love this company. I mean, they love this company.
Yes, Iron Source, Israeli, the sort of advertising for gaming platforms, software.
Oh,
they're
my God,
rolling up
really?
a lot of companies. We'll keep an eye on it. We'll see how it performs.
Are there any other companies that do that?
Yeah, there's a few.
How about there's another story today about the NFL trying to, the NFL, remember, if you get the games, you also have to do NFL Network, which is very exciting during the NFL season, and then less exciting when the season's over. Because you're not gambling on the NFL. I mean, right now, I'm not putting a lot of bet, but I can't bet. But, David, if you were to gamble in the NFL now, you're really kind of gambling on, well, it's not really clear. You're gambling on who someone might draft in their fantasy. I mean, I don't know.
You can gamble on all sorts of things at this point.
Well, you can gamble. But a lot of times if you go to DraftKings,
who's going to be the starting quarterback?
Yeah, it'll be like, and we don't know.
Yes.
Remember, the big issue for Green Bay is whether David's going to get the Jeopardy job or Rodgers going to get the Jeopardy job.
So really, David, the future of the Green Bay franchise depends on Faber's future.
Yeah, should I draft Devontae Adams?
Anybody wanting to bet on it, I would go with Rodgers.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Get the Rodgers rate?
Maybe, but he's going to do both. If he gets that job, he'll do both. He's going to try. He's got a private plane. He can fly him all over.
I got to tell you, I'm not drafting Devontae if that's what happens.
Well,
he's going to lose focus.
Speaking of media, Morgan Stanley has a piece out about our parent Comcast.
Oh, yeah.
Reiterating overweight, taking their target to 70, Jim, which is going to be 25% upside.
And they have the faux debate. The faux debate is AT&T a more formidable broadband competitor now. David, when I read this, and Swinburne,
Ben Swinburne at Morgan Stanley,
I respect
Swinburne.
Swinburne.
He does good work.
But the AT&T, what is it? What this false dichotomy? I mean, do you think if you're a parent company of our network, they're sitting there saying, you know what, I'm worried AT&T is a more formidable broadband competitor? No.
Well, they are going to have more capital at their disposal. They're not going to be as worried at AT&T about the enormous leverage on their balance sheet. They're not going to be fighting, as I put it, this two-front war where they have to fund both media and wireless. And so you could argue, Jim, that they are going to be a more formidable competitor on broadband/wireless. And by the way, wireless is becoming an important business for the cable companies, so to speak, Charter and
Ben's
Comcast.
point is that they're not going to derail Comcast growth. They still see 20% CAGRs for the next 4 years.
Exactly. I mean, let's understand that in any industry other than in this industry, it's not zero sum. I mean, you don't ever read if Facebook does well, it's going to kill Google.
It's not zero sum.
It's not like that. But in this industry, you say something good about Fox, it means, or Viacom, it means that Comcast is buying Viacom.
Which is not happening.
No, and as a matter of fact, they said on CNBC, they quoted you, David.
No, they did.
They said the company relayed through CNBC. Are you just, I guess.
Oh, they related it
They relayed through CNBC that this is pure speculation. So basically just saying that you.
Oh, I'm owned, yeah. By the way, I will make it clear.
Are you owned and operated? Are you an O&O?
Our parent company is the worst in communicating at all. I have much better relationships with every other media company than I do with our own.
I want to inform David that may not be the most, that could be an ill-advised position.
Can we black that out like they do in Beijing?
Yeah, what are they going to do to me?
I've
been here forever.
What are they going to do to you?
I'm literally screwed to the seat.
What am I going to do? No, you see, you work for. Well, I'll give you some advice about career later.
I love our company. I love its management. Love them all.
Now, you're right.
The love is so deep.
Yeah, because I was going to suggest that Eli Lilly and Biogen have something you might want to use.
Eli Lilly, David Rick's coming up later in the program.
And how about this Walmart private label insulin? The first and only offer. Walmart's saying that their customers, about 3 million with diabetes, could be saving up to 75% off the cash price.
Well, we were worried about Amazon moving in. I mean, no, worry about Walmart. And Walmart, by the way, recognizes the number of people with diabetes. It's terrible. So if you take a look at the glucose monitor that Abbott announced yesterday, that's another winner. Now, is David going to be talking about the Alzheimer's?
About the what?
You mean
David Ricks.
Is he Alzheimer's or insulin?
Alzheimer's. No, but David everything. But
Lily's going to be talking about the Alzheimer's. Drug,
yeah, but is he on Tech Check?
No, he's on the 10 o'clock hour.
Oh, I got it.
You want to stick around?
Yeah. Meg Terrell is going to be leading it. So.
It's Meg's story.
She's typically got a lot of good questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just pointing that out.
They're-
By the way,
when you're 0-0.
this continues to be a big story, as in Lilly, if in fact they do get approval for their Alzheimer's drug, it does operate in a similar way as to the Biogen-approved drug. And then this question of the enormous price tag of these drugs and
Well,
whether
that's
the
what I
U.S.
worry
government,
about.
through Medicare and or insurers as well, are going to be willing to pay
On a drug that we have,
$56,000 a year.
look, they can reduce plaque, but we don't know what that necessarily does. Does it delay Alzheimer's? Do you get an additional couple of years? I don't know.
Meanwhile, some of the estimates of the total cost, I mean, are like half of DOD's budget.
Oh, no, it's just the Chinese can invade Taiwan and we can't fight. There, I said it. That was blocked out very quickly.
It would be an enormous potential cost, and it does raise this issue because, again, the FDA was very divided on whether to approve the Biogen drug, given the data that they were presented with. Biogen stock, by the way, has backed off from those
Yes.
highs that
Well,
it saw
because
on the initial announcement.
No, none of the HMO is going to pay that. And look, a lot of the people, we got to ask David about this, but some of the researchers, of course, resigned.
Yeah, no, there's been a lot of controversy around that decision.
By the way, I think Guggenheim today takes Biogen down, 455 to 446. Just some of the cloudiness, right, regarding this whole approval process, Jim, and the ability to pay for this drug down the road.
Well, look, I know that when David talked about this on Mad Money, he said, listen, it's going to be approved. And then a lot of analysts downgraded. Stock went from 212 immediately to like 180. And now look at it. And that's because this is the holy grail illness. But I just don't think that the country can afford that price.
Meanwhile, Jim, just a quick note, we're on the cusp of 4,300 S&P, which is a year-end target for some.
I was going to
around
say,
the street.
how many of these strategists are going to have to, Dave, they're going to have to come in on when July starts and say, you know what, we got to raise our price target.
Yeah. Although
Right.
there are still, was it Lisa Chalet yesterday, still 10 to 20% correction in the second half of the year.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm
there
hearing
is
that.
still
Mike
a,
Wilson and the Morgan
Yeah.
Stanley
Do
team.
you know how many people are dying to get in if that happened? I mean, so many people cashed out, didn't believe, and Biden comes in, and that's going to be bad for stocks, and you got to take the capital gains now. Those people have remorse. They have seller's remorse, David.
They do, and now we mentioned this at the top of the program. Facebook is remaining a $1 trillion company, just a bit above that. So what we got: Apple, Facebook, Alphabet, Amazon, and Microsoft, all well above $1 trillion. Two of them above $2 trillion. Pretty amazing.
It happened. It just happened. And
I mean, I can remember when Apple was approaching $1 trillion, and we were like, wow,
was
that
very
never.
skeptical.
Yeah.
But look, this is a market that every day they find some new theme. Skyworks is up $4. Boom. You make a comment, Dave, and the stock goes up big. That's just the way this kind of Boeing gets an order. We all knew Boeing was going to get an order. It still matters.
And your point yesterday about dilution, today we have XPO issuing 5 million shares.
That's Brad's stock.
Tilray's asking for permission. Carnival yesterday. Salesforce going to pay for Slack with some new senior notes. A lot of issuance this week.
Yes, and it doesn't seem to matter. People are ready and waiting. This is a group of people that really have they've taken, I love the way they've taken over. That's good. It's like the old days, a little
It
excitement.
really is like the old days. Nobody's even nobody masked. I mean, everybody on the floor. It's great.
They've probably been vaccinated.
11:18. I mean, again, this was trading already, so it's just, yeah. Sorry?
They've probably been vaccinated.
Yes, everybody has been vaccinated who was not wearing a mask. That is the rule.
Yeah, it's interesting because, again, that's a very, we're trying to remember what are you allowed to do? Can you demand it or not?
You can, but you may not.
Yeah, that's perfect.
By the
How about
way,
some meme stocks,
speaking
David?
of
You haven't even memed.
Speaking of demanding and/or back to work, you guys may have seen Uber. I think is the latest company. We sort of try and follow these to some extent. Jim, Uber saying you want to work half your time out of the office. Okay, that's a report from Reuters, by the way. They're citing sources. Apparently, they're going to announce it. I don't believe Uber's out with the announcement, if they have been. But
now, a lot of our viewers are going to say, well, how? Of course they're out.
those
That's the
working in
delivery of food.
offices need to spend at least 50% of their time there, which I guess implies that you could,
50%. What do they-
spend 49%
Well,
of
that's
your
like
time
if I
at
spend
home.
50% of my time in Florida, I don't have to pay. I mean, how do they come up with this stuff?
I don't know.
How do they come up with? I mean, come on, let's just return to the office.
It's fascinating.
Grab a
to
water
watch
cooler, talk about what Netflix. Let's just go back to
Decisions
that.
are made. These are going to be consequential decisions being made by these management teams because they're going to be years. They're going to look back and see. Were we as productive?
Freud always said you got to go back to work.
Were we as focused on problem solving? Did we have cohesion, or did we lose something because we didn't have people together enough?
On the flip side, maybe our labor force, had atrophy. We couldn't bring in the smartest, most selective new people. It's
absolutely
it'll be
right.
years before we know the answer to some of these questions.
Right, or I couldn't attract the people I want. Right, to your point.
Right, it'll be
because they don't want to work in the office.
You'll
all the
know
time.
whether the drug works against Alzheimer's before you know whether we're productive. I mean, remember when Frank Slootman said he's going to be? I mean, a lot of people going to Boise. But you want to go to Boise and run your company?
No, Slootman is as resolute as they come right now.
Oh my God!
You do not need to come in because I'm not coming in.
Look, I read
view.
Slootman's book.
Well, that's part of that. At some
be.
organizations, it starts with the CEO. It's like, I don't want to come in, so I can't ask anybody else to. And then in other organizations, it's the opposite. It's David Solomon, who basically never missed a day in the office of Goldman Sachs through the entire pandemic.
Right.
And it's like, where is everybody?
Yeah, well, I got to tell you, if you're going to advance at Goldman, I got a sense that maybe you ought to show up. Don't just put your chair on the, your jacket on the back of the chair. Be there.
You can't cite a safety issue any longer if you're an employee, unless you're not vaccinated. I mean, you can't cite, so you're just saying this is a lifestyle issue.
And by the way, in terms of travel, TSA today, Jim, 2 million yesterday passengers cleared. It's the 10th day this month with a 2 million plus.
Wow. How about international? It's still really low. I thought it was very interesting with the Asian comments. Remember, there are a lot of companies that send cargo that in the belly of planes. You don't just send them into those giant ships, and that has been a big problem because there's not enough planes, so there's not enough stuff in the belly. They call it the belly, dude.
Yeah,
got it.
I have to say, I'm continually fascinated by Slootman, who went to Erasmus. Which is an amazing school in Holland. I wrote my thesis on Erasmus. He's a funny guy.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you have that somewhere? I'd love to read it.
Bring it in.
I wrote this my capstone. His capstone was on Erasmus.
How long have we known him? We still learn new stuff.
The things we learn.
Erasmus rocked.
It's so deep.
Slootman and I are going to talk about Erasmus.
Slootman and Erasmus.
So we got record highs on the S&P and NASDAQ before settling back a bit. VIX is at 15.5 today. Let's get to Bob Pisani. Hey, Bob.
Hey guys, happy Tuesday. We're trying to get over 4,300. A little bit of help from the banks. If you take a look here, of course, the banks are increasing their payouts. They're all up 1 to 2%. That's a nice little help there. Energy and materials, industrials leading. You see tech lagging. So this back and forth between growth and value, which is the story of the month, continues. Still no clear winner, although growth has been a little bit better recently. A little bit of concern about Delta variants around the world. The reopening stocks were terrible yesterday. The thing I would point out is these stocks topped out, folks, a long time ago. This is an old trade. March, April, most of these stocks hit their highs. So Marriott's 15% off of its highs. Delta's 20% off of the highs. Maybe concerns out there, but again, this story is pretty old here, buying these reopening stocks. What is not old is what's going on with the growth. They're very overbought. I mean, NVIDIA, please, Amazon, Facebook, even Apple. I mean, these things have been monsters for the last few weeks, so they're dramatically overbought. I think they're due for a little bit of a pullback at this point. I was very impressed with the dividend payouts for the banks. Morgan Stanley was the big surprise. 3.2% now. This is what their effective yield is going to be right now. That's twice what it used to be. You go over 3%, less than 20% of the stocks in the S&P are over 3% dividend yield. So Morgan Stanley's in some exalted territory. Everybody else was sort of in line with the expectations, but still pretty good at 2%. The problem is dividends are terrible these days because the prices have gone up. The S&P is a dividend yield of 1.3% right now. 1.3%. That's the lowest since 2001. It's not because they're cutting the payouts. The payouts are still there. It's the prices have gone up, particularly tech. Tech pays the most dividend at a dollar basis. And as the prices of all of these tech stocks, the big ones, have gone up, the yields have gone down. You could take a look at Apple, for example. Apple used to pay close to 2%, believe it or not. 1.7 back in 2019. Now it's 0.6%. They give you an idea of the influence of these big tech stocks here. Look at that. Same thing with Microsoft. It's 0.6, 0.7% right now. Used to be close to 1.8 as well. Next, I keep getting my inbox filled with people saying, Kathy Woods filed for a Bitcoin ETF. And I say back to everybody who messages me, guys, get in line. There's 8 firms that have filed for a Bitcoin ETF. The SEC is going to rule on the Van Eck Bitcoin. That's the one in first in line. That'll be August 3rd. They'll give a thumbs up, thumbs down, or kick the can down the road. Gensler's already said, I want more regulation of crypto exchanges. I'm concerned about fraud and manipulation. So none of this is a slam dunk. None of it. But Kathy Woods is going to get in line. Finally, guys, you saw the activity on the floor. It's going to be very busy on IPOs this week. We have 18 IPOs over $100 million that have been filed for this week. And of course, DD is going to file tomorrow. DD will price tonight and we'll be trading tomorrow right there at post date. We'll be talking about all of that. David, 18 IPOs this week filed for more than $100 million. That's one of the biggest weeks we have seen in a long, long time. Talk more about how the second half is going to look tomorrow. David, back to you.
And those that are de-SPACing, so to speak, of course, as well. Bob Bassani. Still to come right here, Eli Lilly CEO David Ricks. Of course, we were talking about that a moment ago. You're going to want to hear what he has to say about his company's Alzheimer's treatment. Phase 2 trials are in there. But first, let's give you a look at how treasurers are faring this morning. This as we await consumer confidence data. That is due out at the top of the hour. You can see yields up across the board. Keep a close eye on that 5-year note in particular, 0.904. We'll be right back.
That's why we've designed a system that keeps everything that works about the traditional physical control with a look we've strived to make long overdue. We've anticipated you're free to tweak with your mood. iPhone users will enjoy wireless Apple CarPlay compatibility over the air to see how people use our vehicles and get ongoing feedback.
You have the whole front space right now?
Some of the buyers have come into crypto this morning. Bitcoin back above 36K as some headlines circulate about Cathie Wood's renewed interest in a Bitcoin ETF, for example. That's lifting the whole sector. Dogecoin up better than 5%. The Dow, meantime, up 113, and the S&P still flirting with 4,300.